This man and his dog hold the record for the fastest time up Alpe du Zwift, a virtual replica of a real mountain from the Tour de France. Completing is a major accomplishment. Mark Lewis did it with his dog Nixon.
Until somebody proves otherwise, Nixon, fastest dog ever up Alpe du Zwift.
Mark, Nixon, we're coming for you. I'm not a traditional athlete. In fact, I feel pretty uncomfortable using that word, even though I have a coach and I train almost every single day. I didn't play sports in high school, and I only started road cycling 2 years ago. My dog Vivian is obviously a perfect athletic specimen, but what business do I have going for a world record? A large share of that blame belongs to Mark, and not just because he holds the current record. Mark runs a YouTube channel where he preaches the gospel of above average.
Who wants to be down here? And this end is just far too hard. This is obviously the middle. You want to be here, above average. It is the sweet spot, it is the fun spot, and it is really easy to get to.
Most of my life, in schoolwork, creative work, work, I deliberately underperformed. Probably because I was afraid of learning I wasn't as good as I thought I was. If I were to give my all, and my all wasn't the best, that would be devastating. So I just didn't try very hard. However, because of Mark, I've moved my goals from being the best to being above average. I don't want to be too dramatic, but I do feel kind of like I'm actually living for the first time. As far as I know, Mark and Nixon not only hold the world record, they're also the only human canine team to summit the Alpe du Zwift. So, with the help of my dog Vivian, I'm going to thank Mark for his impact on my life by making him below average at his own event. Do you have any tips?
The main thing, number one, so I've got a kicker bike. So on the kicker bike, you can increase and decrease the pitch of the bike. I manually pitched it up a bit more so that I wasn't leant over so much, because it basically, having Nixon on my back for an hour hurt my lower back.
Now, I don't have the kicker bike. I have the kicker trainer, which does adjust the difficulty of the steeper the incline, the harder it is to pedal, just like in real life. I don't have a kicker climb. That's a separate device that tilts your bike up and down based on the gradient, so I had to get creative. By the way, Wahoo, if you're watching this and you want to send me the kicker climb, I'll do this whole thing over again.
Ah! That was the main one. I had my fans going crazy because having him on my back hooked me. Some treats, although once I started to sweat, he has a sweat fetish. It's his little kink, I'm not going to shame him over that. Yeah, that was it. The main one was the pitch of the bike.
Armed with insider information, we were ready to hit the Alpe. The clock to watch is this one here. Up here, you can see my watts. That's how much power I'm outputting. And here you can see my cadence and heartbeat. Even though I have a resting heart rate in the 50s, I have a very high max heart rate for my age. I'm 34. I've been called a hummingbird in the past. Looking at Mark's stats, you can see his heart rate is much lower, but his watts are much higher. That's because Mark's a beast. I mean, look at this guy. At 6 foot 6 inches tall, he and Nixon weigh in around 238 pounds. But at 6'1" and weighing 182 pounds with Vivian on my back, we're basically featherweights compared to Mark and Nixon.
We're doing all right. Just got to do this for an hour.
Alpe du Zwift was built using the GPS data from a real-life mountain, Alpe d'Huez. Mountains in bike racing are categorized on a scale from 5 to 1. 5 being the easiest, 1 being the most difficult. For climbs that are spectacularly difficult, there's a special category, and it's in French. I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry. Au catégorie HC. It literally translates to, like, without category, incomparable. Maybe now you understand why just finishing the climb is an accomplishment. For an above-average cyclist, a sub-60-minute time up the Alpe is a rite of passage. Mark has done it multiple times. I have not. My last time up the Alpe was exactly 60 minutes and 0.84 seconds. I'm still bitter about it. If I'm gonna beat that and beat Mark and Nixon up the Alpe with Vivian on my back, we're gonna have to hit a sub 60-minute time.
We're 1/4 of the way through. I think I can do that 3 more times. Good job, pup.
Mark could obviously destroy me if we were to go head-to-head on push-ups or pull-ups or carrying the groceries into the house. Because Vivian and I weigh less, I don't need to output as much power to go the same speed up a hill. You can see this by comparing our watts per kilo, or power over our weight. When it comes to climbing hills, gross watts are not as important as watts per kilo. The bigger that number is, the faster you go.
Bad news is Mark's ahead of us right now. By a lot. Let's go.
I ran some calculations based on an average of just over 3.2 watts per kilo, and that meant Vivian and I would have to average 265 watts to win. Mark had a different plan.
I've got a 1 hour run this evening. When I leave the front door, I'm not thinking of doing a 1 hour run. I'm thinking of where my first 1 kilometre point is, because I know where that is, and getting there at the right pace. And when I get there, I'll worry about the next bit. I do the same on the Alpe. So for me, it's going turn to turn. It's just focusing on that. And people say the most efficient thing to do is to pedal at the right wattage consistently. Maybe. Not for me.
It seemed like Mark's plan was working. 29 minutes in, and he was slowly pulling ahead.
All right, Vivian, we just hit the halfway point. Let's do this.
By 40 minutes, he was making substantial progress. And to make matters worse, the Vivian cam was a dud. This was the best footage that I got. I've been trying to think of ways to illustrate what riding at 265 watts for 40 minutes feels like to me. And the best I could come up with was using this footage of me having a meltdown during an FTP test last year. I was riding at 260 watts. I've become stronger since that ride, but I can tell you 40 minutes at my sweet spot training zone, there's nothing sweet about it. I've just become better at living with the pain.
You've still got a while to progress, so
This is my cycling coach, Cam.
there's actually probably 3 or 4 or 5 levels above that you could eventually get to. And then all of a sudden, your lens on what's difficult and what's not changes because of what you've done, and you've got the muscular conditioning and you've got the experience.
We hear about the benefits of exercise for mental health all the time. It always seemed like those benefits came from a pleasant place. You're outside in the fresh air. But I think there's something really special about the suffering you experience in endurance sports that makes you stronger as a person. At least that's what I kept telling myself as I was watching Mark and Nixon ride further and further away. In the past, watching them ride off into the distance might have caused me to throw in the towel, but I always have more to give, and it's not time to give up yet. The problem is, Mark and Nixon are only 500 meters from the finish line. Maybe if I were to sprint all out at this point, I could catch him, but Mark's a much stronger sprinter than I am. I need a miracle. Or maybe a plot twist. You might have noticed a sticky note on the television. Or maybe you thought it was strange that I didn't explicitly give Mark and Nixon's time up the Alpe. Do you remember my last time up the Alpe? A frustrating 60 minutes and 0.84 seconds. When I told Mark, the man who inspired me to be above average, he laughed at me.
I don't know how you that's ridiculous. That's more embarrassing than your tiny dog.
And in that moment, a villain was born. I decided I would not only beat Mark, I would crush him. Vivian and Nixon obviously have no beef. They barely acknowledged each other. Mark, the video playing on the iPad here was not from your ride with Nixon, but you know that. For the rest of you, it's from a solo ride Mark did up the Alpe. He very graciously made a video showing turn by turn how to do a sub 60-minute Alpe summit. Because Nixon wasn't on his back, that meant he was 14 kilos lighter and riding much faster than with Nixon. I was using his own ride against him to pace myself. Mark and Nixon's actual time was right there on the sticky note the entire ride. I turned that last corner at 55 minutes and 29 seconds. Mark and Nixon would not get there until 60 minutes 14 seconds. 4 minutes and 46 seconds later. With less than a mile to go, I turned my sights onto another nemesis, the sub 60-minute summit.
22 miles. We got this, Vivian. Very good girl. Can't believe I did that. Dude, Mark, that is no joke.
Can we just take a moment and appreciate Vivian and how good she was on this ride? And while we're at it, like, shout out to Nixon. What a great pup. And of course, a huge shout out to Mark. Thank you, dude.
All right, can you get my glasses and the Vivian goggles? There's one more shot.